Hi, my name is Soria Wilkins, and this is discussion 7, labor relations in the public sector. In this presentation, I will discuss bargaining, negotiation, mediation, a union, highlighting both academic article and news story. What is the difference between distributive and integrative bargaining? Distributive bargaining is a win-lose approach where there is a fixed amount of resources so that one side gains while the other one loses. It's more competitive and usually ends in compromising. On the other hand, integrative bargaining focuses on win-win outcomes by expanding the value instead of just diving into or dividing into it. It's more collaborative and focuses on problem solving. I will give you an example with work schedules. A distributive approach would be to just split the weekend shifts, which might leave people unhappy, but an integrative approach would involve understanding staff preferences and creating trade-offs like offering flexible weekdays in exchange for weekend coverages, leading into a better outcome for everyone. What is negotiation? Negotiation is a process of resolving conflict through discussion, with the goal of reaching a solution both sides can accept. One key insight from Yuri is the importance of controlling your reaction. He calls it going to the balcony, which means staying calm and not reacting emotionally, even in difficult situations. Another insight is the value of mediation, where a neutral third party comes and helps both sides to communicate and find a compromise. This can lead to more effective and lasting solutions. All right, what are the concepts of mediation and arbitration? Mediation and arbitration are both ways of resolve disputes without going to court, but they work differently. Mediation is more of a discussion process where a neutral third party helps both sides, communicates, and reaches an agreement. The mediator doesn't make decisions, and the party stays in control. Arbitration is more like a court case where an arbitrator listens to both sides, then makes a final, usual binding decision. For example, in a government setting, if there's a dispute between a department and a union, mediation could help with negotiation and solution. If that doesn't work, arbitration could be used into making a final decision. All right, I have identified a union and chose SEIU Local 721 because it connects to my field in adult day services and social services. They represent public sector workers across Southern California. After the Janus decision, employees were no longer required to pay union fees, so unions lost guaranteed funding. Because of that, now they have to focus more on engaging members and showing their value. Even with these changes, unions are still active, but they rely more on a voluntary membership and outreach. I have identified an academic article, and this article focuses on public employee unions and their role in collective bargaining. It explains how unions help negotiate things like wages, benefits, and working conditions. This article connects to my role as program supervisor in an adult day service program because unions can directly impact the staff I supervise. For example, collective bargaining can influence things like staff wages, benefits, scheduling, and workload. These arrangements, or actually, these agreements, affect how I manage my team and make a day-to-day decision. It also promotes fairness and making sure employees have a voice in their work conditions. However, like we saw it with Act 10, laws can limit that unions are able to renegotiate, and that can impact both employees and management. One key takeaway I did get is that the collective bargaining helps create more fairness between employees and management. However, the article also points out that laws can limit how much employees are able to negotiate depending on the state. I will now talk about the Wisconsin Act 10, which was passed in 2011. This information came from an Associated Press News report. It stated that the law limited collective bargaining rights for most public employees, allowing negotiations mainly on wages. It also required employees to contribute more toward their healthcare and retirement benefits. So, as a result, union power and membership declined, and the law led to major protests and ongoing legal challenges. One thing I did learn is that Act 10 didn't just limit bargaining, it really narrowed down most wages and made employees pay more for their benefits. I didn't realize how much that reduced union influence. So there's that. This does connect to bargaining and negotiation, by the way, from this week's um, topic, because unions now have fewer things they can actually negotiate. It also affects unions by weakening their power and membership. And with that, fewer issues being negotiated, there's also less need for mediation. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for watching, and bye.